Imagine you're in a job interview. Everything is going well. You've answered every question with confidence. Then, suddenly, the interviewer looks at you and asks, "Can you describe a time you received negative feedback?" And in just 1 second, your confidence disappears. Should you admit that you made a mistake? Should you tell a story where your manager criticized you? Or should you try to make the feedback sound small so you don't look weak? This is exactly where many candidates lose the interview, not because they received negative feedback, but because they don't understand what the interviewer is really asking.
Honestly, Cece, if someone asked me that question, I'd probably start thinking, if I tell the truth, they'll think I'm not good enough.
And that's what thousands of candidates think. But here's the surprising part. This question is almost never about the mistake. It's about something much more important. It's about your attitude, your mindset, and whether you're someone people actually want to work with. Today, we're going to show you why this question can become one of the easiest questions in your interview if you know exactly what interviewers are listening for. And by the end of this lesson, you'll have a simple framework that helps you answer with confidence, honesty, and professionalism every single time.
Okay, let's get started.
Let's start with something that surprises many candidates. Most people think this question is about the feedback they received. It isn't. It's about what they did after they received it.
Really? So the mistake itself isn't the most important part?
Exactly. Think about it this way. Every employee receives feedback, even top performers, even managers, even CEOs. Receiving feedback is completely normal. So when an interviewer asks, "Describe a time you received negative feedback," they're not trying to discover whether you've ever made a mistake. They already know you have. They're trying to discover what kind of person you become after someone points out that mistake.
I never thought about it like that. I always thought I needed to make the feedback sound as small as possible.
And that's exactly what many candidates do. They spend the entire answer trying to protect their image. They choose tiny examples that don't sound believable. Or they say, "I can't really think of any negative feedback." Unfortunately, that answer creates the opposite impression, because now the interviewer starts wondering, does this person lack self-awareness? Can this person accept coaching? Or do they think they're always right? None of those thoughts help you get hired.
So what is the interviewer actually evaluating?
They're evaluating 4 things. The first is self-awareness. Can you honestly recognize an area where you needed to improve? Notice something important. They aren't asking whether you're perfect. They're asking whether you understand yourself. Someone who can say, "I realized my communication wasn't always clear," or "I noticed I spent too much time focusing on small details," often sounds much stronger than someone who insists they've never had a problem, because self-awareness is one of the qualities companies value most.
That makes sense. If someone doesn't know their weaknesses, it's hard for them to improve.
Right. Now, here's the second thing interviewers look for: humility. What happened the moment you received that feedback? Did you become defensive? Did you argue? Did you blame someone else? Or did you listen? Imagine you're the hiring manager. You have 2 candidates. The first says, "My manager criticized me, but I didn't think it was fair." The second says, "At first I was surprised, but I understood why my manager gave me that feedback, and I wanted to improve." Which person sounds easier to work with? Most interviewers will choose the second candidate immediately, because companies don't just hire skills, they hire people who are coachable.
So accepting feedback doesn't make me look weak. It actually makes me look mature.
And that's something many candidates misunderstand. They think confidence means proving they're always right, but real confidence means you're comfortable enough to admit you still have room to grow. Now let's look at the third thing interviewers care about: action. Receiving feedback is only the beginning. Every candidate can say, "My manager told me to improve my communication." But then what? What changed? Did you ask for advice? Did you practice? Did you change your habits? Did you create a better system? Interviewers don't remember feedback, they remember improvement, because improvement shows initiative. It shows you don't wait for problems to disappear, you solve them.
So, the story shouldn't end with the criticism. That's actually where the important part begins.
And finally, interviewers want to see growth. Growth is the proof that the feedback mattered. Maybe your communication became clearer. Maybe your time management improved. Maybe you became more confident when working with customers. Whatever the result is, it should show that today's version of you is better than yesterday's version of you. That's what employers want to hire. Not someone who has never made mistakes, but someone who learns quickly from them.
I think that's the biggest mindset shift today. Most candidates are trying to hide the mistake, but interviewers are actually looking for the lesson.
And here's another mistake we see all the time. Candidates think they need to tell an impressive story. They choose a major conflict, a major project failure, or a serious mistake that cost the company a lot of money. You don't need that. In fact, a smaller example is usually much stronger. For example, maybe your manager told you that your emails were too long, or that you needed to communicate project updates more clearly, or that you sometimes spent too much time perfecting small details. These are realistic situations. They're easy to improve, and they allow you to demonstrate growth naturally. Remember this, the interviewer isn't measuring how big the problem was. They're measuring how big your growth was. That's the difference. So the next time you hear this question, don't ask yourself, how can I hide my mistake? Ask yourself, which story best shows that I can learn, adapt, and become a better employee? Because in the interviewer's mind, that answer is far more valuable than pretending you've never needed feedback at all. So now comes the most important part. How do you turn a difficult experience into an answer that actually impresses the interviewer? Let's break it down together. Okay, Tom, now that you understand what interviewers are really looking for, let's build an answer that is simple, natural, and easy to remember. You don't need a long story, you just need a clear structure. I recommend using 4 simple steps.
Only 4? That sounds much easier than trying to remember a long speech.
Right. Let's go through them one by one. The first step is the situation. Briefly explain when the feedback happened. Keep it short. For example, early in my previous job, during one project, when I first joined the company. Notice how these phrases immediately give the interviewer context without taking too much time.
So, I shouldn't spend 2 minutes explaining the background?
Definitely not. Remember, the feedback, not the story, is the focus. Now, let's move to step 2. Describe the feedback you received. You can use phrases like, my manager pointed out that, I received constructive feedback that, my supervisor told me that I needed to improve. I especially like the phrase, I received constructive feedback, because it sounds much more professional than saying, my boss criticized me, because constructive feedback means feedback that helps you improve.
I like that phrase. It sounds positive, even though it's about a mistake.
Your language should already show that you see feedback as something valuable. Now comes the most important step. Explain what you did. This is where many candidates either impress the interviewer or lose them. You can say, I took the feedback seriously. I reflected on what my manager said. I asked for advice on how to improve. I started paying more attention to, I made a plan to improve my communication. Notice something. Every one of these phrases shows action, because interviewers aren't looking for perfect employees. They're looking for employees who take responsibility.
So, instead of defending myself, I should show that I was willing to learn.
Yeah. And finally, step 4, show the result. This is where your story becomes complete. You can say, as a result, my communication improved. Since then, I've become much more organized. My manager noticed the difference. It helped me become more confident at work. I learned an important lesson from that experience. These phrases tell the interviewer one important thing. The feedback worked. You grew.
So if I put everything together, the answer becomes very logical. Situation,
feedback, action, result.
And there's one more tip I'd like to share. Don't use phrases that make you sound defensive. Instead of saying, I made a lot of mistakes, try saying, I realized there was room for improvement. Instead of saying, my manager wasn't happy with my work, say, my manager pointed out an area where I could improve. Do you hear the difference? The second version sounds calm, professional, and growth-oriented.
I also noticed something. The best phrases don't make the candidate sound perfect. They make the candidate sound teachable.
And that's the goal. Interviewers don't expect someone who has never received negative feedback. They expect someone who can learn from it. So remember these 4 simple steps: situation, feedback, action, result. Follow this structure, use these simple phrases naturally, and you'll have an answer that feels honest, confident, and professional without sounding memorized. But knowing the structure isn't enough. Even strong candidates can lose points if they make a few common mistakes. Let's see what they are. Now, let's look at 3 mistakes that can quietly weaken your answer, even if your English is good.
What's the first one?
Mistake number 1. Choosing a story that's too serious. Some candidates talk about losing a major client, making an expensive mistake, or creating a big conflict at work. That's risky. Choose a situation that shows growth, not one that makes the interviewer question your judgment.
So I don't need the biggest mistake of my career.
Right. A realistic example is much more effective. Mistake number 2, becoming the victim. For example, my manager was unfair. My coworker caused the problem. The moment you blame someone else, the interviewer starts wondering whether you'll do the same in their company. Take ownership instead.
That already sounds much more professional.
Absolutely. And here's the final mistake: talking about the feedback but forgetting the improvement. Many candidates explain what happened, then stop. But the interviewer is still waiting for one question to be answered. What changed because of that feedback? If your story doesn't end with growth, it feels incomplete. Always finish by showing how the experience made you a better employee. We've talked about what to say and what not to say. Now let's put everything together and see how a confident candidate answers this question in a real interview.
Okay. Can you describe a time you received negative feedback?
Certainly. Early in my previous job, my manager gave me some constructive feedback about my communication. He told me that while my work was accurate, I sometimes focused so much on the details that my updates weren't always clear or concise. I appreciated the feedback because I realized there was room for improvement. Instead of feeling discouraged, I asked my manager for suggestions and started paying more attention to how I explained my ideas. Before meetings, I prepared short summaries so I could communicate more clearly and confidently. Over time, I noticed a big improvement. My teammates understood my updates more easily. Our meetings became more efficient, and my manager even commented that my communication had become much stronger.
That's a good example. What did you learn from that experience?
I learned that feedback isn't something to be afraid of. It's an opportunity to improve. Since then, I've been much more open to constructive feedback because every piece of advice helps me become a better professional and a better team member.
Excellent. Thank you. Let's continue with the next question.
So, Tom, today we learned that receiving negative feedback is not something to hide.
Exactly. It's actually a chance to show that you're willing to learn and improve.
That's the key idea. When you answer this question, remember these 4 simple steps. Describe the situation, explain the feedback, show what you changed, finish with the positive result.
And don't forget, interviewers aren't looking for perfect candidates. They're looking for people who can accept feedback, grow from it, and become stronger over time.
Exactly. If you can show that mindset, you'll leave a much stronger impression than someone who simply tries to sound perfect. Thank you for learning with us today. If you found this lesson helpful, please give this video a like, subscribe to Focus English with Cece, and share it with anyone preparing for a job interview.
Keep learning, keep practicing. We'll see you in the next lesson. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.